Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, my Patreon account. I wanted to have some do some meditation with you all about what's been going on. There's a lot of news of late of anti-black violence being perpetuated by the police, and I know that with the circulation of images, of violent imagery, and with all the um, frustration and anger and everything that's being expressed online, there can be a lot that comes up for us. So I was going um, I want to lead us in a meditation to start, just to work through acknowledging how we're feeling right now, because it's really important to be with yourself through this moment. Like, really be with yourself as much as you can in order to know, what is it that's coming up for you. So I'm going to start with a short meditation, maybe like 10 minutes, and then I want to talk a little bit about my experiences related to responding to moments like these. I've been through a long journey of activism and healing work, and still feel like there's so many questions that I have and things that have still continued to go unanswered. So maybe other people feel a shared sense of, like, well, what can we really do? Um, and maybe a sense of feeling disempowered. Um, and it's okay. I mean, not that that's okay, that state is okay, but it's okay to um, have compassion for feeling those things. It's okay to feel those things. Not to say that the situation itself is okay. So, if you could start with uh, getting into a comfortable seat and closing your eyes or lowering your eyes if that's uncomfortable. If you can, place your feet or legs firmly on the floor. You might want to do this lying down if sitting up is uncomfortable for you. First, let's begin with checking in with the breath. We let the breath be our anchor when we're doing this work of checking in with ourselves. Our breath is always here to hold us steady. So take a few moments just to check in with the quality of your breath. What does it feel like? Do you feel constricted? Do you feel unease? What's going on for you? Now, bring your awareness to the way that your body is encountering the ground or whatever surface is supporting you. You might feel your feet's contact with the floor. You might feel your bottom against the chair. It's important to check in this way, to acknowledge that you're always supported by the earth. The earth has this powerful way of holding us, no matter what we might be experiencing. Check into this feeling of being supported by the ground. What does that feel like? Sound will arise. Just notice it. It will come and go in waves. Now I want to work through the 4 steps of RAIN. RAIN. Recognize, acknowledge, investigate, and nurture. Starting with R, recognize. Bring to your attention something that's been coming up for you. It could be a personal challenge, or it could be a wider spread issue. As I said before, I wanted to check in about how people were doing in this moment of the circulation of news of the violence being perpetrated against Black people. It might be something you want to bring your attention to. So first we recognize what it is that our attention has been put onto. What has become an issue for us? Next, we acknowledge or allow the A of RAIN. Allow the thoughts that are associated with that issue, that challenge to come up. We allow the emotions to come up inside of us. There might be a deep sorrow, a sense of impossibility, of unchangingness. You might feel angry. We allow these feelings and thoughts to rise with us Honestly, we couldn't control it if we tried. We allow, which means that we let go of any need to control. There's no need for shame around how you might be feeling or what thoughts have come to you. Just be with them right now. Next, we investigate, which means gently taking a look at what it is that's coming up. We've recognized it, we've accepted it and allowed it. Now you can bring some curiosity to what's happening within us. What does it feel like to have the emotion or thoughts that you're having? Does it remind you of other times in your life? Is it a familiar feeling? Are they feelings and thoughts that feel inescapable? Or do they come and go? Sometimes you feel them, sometimes you don't. Investigate the sensations that are coming up in your body. Your body is where your spirit meets the world. It is a conduit, a channel for all that you're feeling and thinking. And so if you're feeling sorrow, if you're feeling pain, emotional pain, it might be coming up in your body in some way. Is there a tightness anywhere? You might want to shift your body, which is what I do. When I feel the pain in a particular place, I stretch it out. How's your breath feeling as you're processing, as you're investigating your emotion and your thoughts? You might want to take a deep sigh. Not necessarily to change anything, but to be present with your breath. Lastly, the N of rain is nurture. How can you bring kindness to your experience? actually want to read something from Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist teacher. He says that you might want to say this to yourself. Darling, I care about your suffering. Greet the experience with the words, I love you. Beyond acceptance or the tolerance of our thoughts and feelings is the state of compassion for what we're going through. You are loved and held just the way you are. You might even want to bring up the image of you holding a younger version of yourself, or a small version of yourself that can be held in the palm of your hands. And you can gently hug that small self and say things like, it's okay, I hear you, I care about the suffering. You can put your hand on over your heart and send love and compassion into your body. Now, let's go back and check in with our breath. Now check in with the foundation, the floor, ground beneath you, the earth that holds you. And know that it too cares about your suffering. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. That was really useful for me. took a little longer than I anticipated. I think it was like 20 minutes. I struggle a lot with anxiety, especially anxiety about what I should or shouldn't be doing in this moment. As a Black person who's affected, who feels affected by the murder of Black people in this country. And I want to share some things about that. And I hope that meditation helped you in some way, even if it was just to be with what you're, specifically to be with what you're going through right now. It may not shift anything, but it allows you to bring love to yourself in this moment, which I think is really important. I remember when when I learned of Trayvon Martin's death years ago, I was filled with so much anger. And then when I heard that, I watched the court proceedings, and then I learned that the officer wasn't going to be indicted or charged with anything or convicted. And I biked to the local park, Lamar Park. I knew people were going to be gathering there no matter what happened. I was just angry and sad. A lot of times that's what's underneath the anger, is a sadness. And a sadness of not being able to shift your fate or control what happens to you in this world. And I have a lot of compassion for Kumi. I think my name was Wendy back then, my legal name. And I remember really struggling that day that the organizing was happening, was and like being at Lamar Park, was because there was a man there who was just staring at me in a way that was really uncomfortable. And then later, at the end of that march, a friend of mine who's a woman was followed home by someone at the march or the rally. And, being on the phone with her to help her feel okay or safe, or just try to talk to her while this person was following her. And then becoming an organizer, I think it was like 5 years ago, becoming an organizer, becoming a part of Black Lives Matter in Los Angeles, helping to organize a trip to Ferguson with organizers around the country, being, doing the work with Patrisse Cullors, meeting so many activists, and still just having this profound sense of anger and sadness. Sometimes I'd be the loudest person yelling in the room, or often I would be, and I just wanted to lead everyone into, I just really wanted to be taking action and making action happen. And I started to learn about the political aspect of organizing and the history of organizing, and how there's a lot of dark history that has happened. There was the murder of Ralph Bunche. I think it's Ralph Bunche. I'm forgetting the names, but two Black Panthers at UCLA's campus in the 70s, and that lingered till today because one of the people who had something to do with that um, was a part of the movement I was in. And then I learned a lot of like dark aspects of um, the Black political struggle in LA, including the violence that Black people were perpetuating against each other in order to control what the movements looked like and like have power, political power through organizing. And that didn't sit well with me. I really struggled. I was in situations where I had to speak up against other people who were organizers who had committed sexual violence against Black women. And so there was so much that was triggering about that experience. And it was confusing to wanting to be a part something where you're being heard and then knowing that, well, the violence is still being perpetuated here. It's not police violence against Black people, but it's patriarchal violence or homophobia or transphobia. My cat is trying to get out of my closet. I didn't know he was in my closet. But yeah, so it's just learning about hypocrisy like within my community. And then I led a space that was called Black Political Education. And in that space, someone attacked me um, and tried to run my name into the ground because they wanted to have influence over the space. This is what I keep seeing, okay? Oh, people want power over something, so they're going to do whatever they can to get it and run your name through the mud. And so it's just interesting because an act as pivotal, something as pivotal as the violence against a Black person, can stimulate all this collective organizing, and then that can bring up all these other layers. It just exposes the very complexity of human like society, people coming together as society and trying to make community. And I can't say there's definitely negativity bias in what I'm saying, which is like how our minds are often programmed just to look at the negative. Because there were also very beautiful moments of laughing with other Black people or just making new friends, and, you know, that pure desire to create connection. That in itself is beautiful and shouldn't be glossed over. But I do have to acknowledge we just did rain, right? I really have to sit with the feeling of disappointment, honestly. And I've had so many shattering, painful moments as an organizer. And then I became a healing, everything transformed into helping to support people to heal because I saw that, wow, there's so much trauma. And um, that's what I attribute people, when people did, when the individuals did come for me, I do attribute it to trauma that hasn't been healed. Because I don't think we're meant to treat each other in that way. But we don't, that could be a coping mechanism for somebody is, um, you know, hurt someone else before I can get hurt, or I don't fully understand it, but So now I feel, so hearing about the death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and I have to look it up, Breonna Taylor, I think. Yeah, Breonna Taylor. There's so many names. That's the fucked up part of all this. Oh, that's one of the fucked up parts. Is like there's so many people to remember. Um, so seeing everyone galvanized and on the streets again, I was I would participate in marches, acts of resistance. I've seen people get incarcerated, you know, so again victimized by the same system that you're trying to go against. So 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 seeing all this again, I just feel like a sense of hopelessness. Like, okay, I've done that. I've seen the dark side of what organizing can be and it just how hectic and a mess it could be, and it's just not for me anymore. And I just have to accept that. I do. Part of me is working on accepting that. Like, it's okay to not do anything as a black person, especially. I'm not really speaking to anyone else's experience right now. Um, for non-black people, I think it's really about processing it. You know, how does this enter into your life in some way? Um, the people around you, like what is anti-blackness and how might, you know, how might you as a person of color or a white person do something to help, even if it's an internal thing, to get to understand the history more. I know there are a lot of people saying you got to do this, you got to talk to your digital, you got to do that. I'm not really, I'm not trying to be so prescriptive, like you got to do. I just think it's a time for reflection and taking responsibility in the ways that you feel you can. But for black people, I think it's totally valid. Any emotion that's coming up is valid. But do take the time to sit with yourself and feel how you're feeling. Because, you know, it might be that you feel disassociated. And I kind of feel that way too. Is like, okay, I've seen, you know, numb to the, you know, repetition. So it's okay to feel that way too. That could be something that you work through and just get to, you know, you investigate it. Like, what's going on? Like, you know, maybe it hurts too much to really feel it. And that's okay. That's the type of thing you can also have compassion for. Compassion for myself as I struggle to deal with this. So that's that's all I wanted to share. I'm still working through it. One thing I want to encourage people to do is not to judge other people for not doing enough. I know I got into that mode back in the day. I would try to radicalize everybody. I was like, and I was into this political paradigm that was all about talking about anti-blackness. But now I'm not so attached to that. Um, just thinking about the violence perpetrated against black people because it is a part of our reality, my reality, but I can acknowledge it and it doesn't have to be my story in a way. Like, it doesn't have to define me. That's the best way to put it. It's something that I experienced, but it's not who I am. And who I am is far greater than any than the touch, than the violence of any police officer. Who I am will never die. Period. So, tapping into that power too is important. So, I hope that's helpful. Or I hope